Hey, good afternoon, or wherever you are, morning, evening. It could be anything. It's YouTube. It's going to be up for a while. We hope, unless they take us down, you never know. What are we dealing with here? It is the 9th of July, 2025. So, Blake McKenzie joining me today. And this is our No Holds Barred episode. Normally we go at 12 noon Pacific, Monday to Friday. But on Wednesday, we come in a little later, 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock Pacific. And then we've got a lot of headlines. We go over kind of the X platform, see what people are talking about. And then we kind of digest it. We masticate. We masticate, not to be confused with masturbate. We masticate it, we chew it up, and then we spit it out, and we kind of go over today's news. So I guess Blake said top story is let's do the RCMP extremist clip. So we got trouble in Canada from one of apparently a staff sergeant with the RCMP has made some pretty interesting comments. We'll allow the lady to speak. Well, I'll read the thing first. This thing is Tokyo Rosie writes, if you're married, your wife stays home to look after the kids, you have a mortgage, you go to church Sundays, you might be an extremist. Please turn yourself in to the nearest RCMP detachment to be added to the watch list. So make her big and let's see what
they're saying on a subject, like becoming more extremist. And if someone was very believed in equal gender rights, but all of a sudden are leaning towards like traditional values, and that might be a sign that they're becoming more extremist. But what they're saying on a subject, like becoming more extremist, and if someone was very believed in equal gender rights, but all of a sudden are leaning towards like traditional values, and that might be a sign that they're becoming more extremist. But
all right, so there's this fucking retard. And before we go into that, I just want to get the follow up because I did that. It's kind of a 1-2 punch. So let's do traditional values. Meanwhile, so that's right underneath that one, Sue. And again, as always, we thank Sue, my lovely wife, for being here to help me out, and Blake with the links we have. So this kind of puts perspective on what this moron was saying. Ryan Gertson writes, the RCMP claimed traditional values could be a sign of extremist behavior. Meanwhile, we got a bunch of these people in these Palestinian headdress masked up, setting fire to Canadian flags. But I guess that's not extremist. Maybe it is extremist. Maybe they're expressing traditional Muslim values by destroying national symbols.
Well, that's what Carney said.
Yeah,
Carney said that. He said it is Muslim values are Canadian values. I would love for him to please show me which of their wonderful values align with Canadian values. But maybe they are aligned now. Maybe that's the secret. That's what liberals are. They're tyrants. They love to be tyrannical. They're moving authoritarian. But to get to this point about this RCMP sergeant who's spokesperson for the RCMP is reacting to what people are now trying to say was a psyop in Canada, where these 4 individuals in Quebec, 2 of them ex-Canadian forces, were plotting a terrorist attack by taking over some land. That's all the information we kind of have, and that they had some firearms, so they must have been up to no good. And they were showing scenes of guys walking in basically gravel pits, firing their guns, and yet missing that we had 3 migrants to Canada on top of a Jeep in BC firing off illegal guns. How they would have even gotten them, because they're not even residents of Canada. They are migrants to Canada from India, are firing off guns. Not a word from the RCMP. Not a word. But this is the whole point, is that this whole situation, listening to this woman talk, she is a class A example. And I just put a link in the private chat if you want to bring this up. This is my response to it from Mark Nixon. He did the same thing. He posted up the video. I'll be the last one in there. But essentially, while the USA and most of the Western world move away from this insanity, Canada doubles down on this progressive cult. And it is a cult. And I go, why is it a cult? Because they believe they have a higher calling, like glassy eyed recent converts to a new religion. This video shows why the woke mind virus should be classified as a mental illness. We have seen that because, both of us are Christians. We've seen people who've become zealots and they get blind to reality and they believe their way is the only way. And they find a new religion. There's almost a sense of purpose that they believe, and it is an error, and it is a spiritual error, I believe, in this case. When you watch them, it's not like they're walking around lying. That's the problem. That is the problem. I wish they were lying, but they actually believe this crap. You listen to her, and you look at her eyes and her face. She's talking to you matter-of-factly. And her eyes are glazed over with a glassy look. And you see that with cult-like personalities. You could look at the people who used to be jumping around Hare Krishna or, other type of, rare extremist groups that I would call extremists. They're far left, but they buy into this as some kind of religion. And it really is a religion. And in my opinion, when you look at this girl, but they're a danger. Because that's a problem. The Nazis were a cult, okay? They were a cult. They were had the same religious zeal where they believe that they are right. And much like Islamicists, and I'm talking about not Muslims, but Islamicists who believe in the supremacy of Islam are very similar. There is a cult mentality that they believe they have the right to interfere in everyone else's lives to force them into compliance with their religion. So you look at them, that's what's scary, is they talk matter-of-factly about it. Like, you're an extremist if you believe in what we would all deem normal. I mean, what was the name of the philosopher, Friedrich Nietzsche? Didn't he state what he called transvaluation? What was once good and wholesome and believed that was considered sinful at one time, then transvaluates, flips right over, and now what was once considered good and wholesome is now considered evil and wrong. That's the transvaluation we're experiencing under this cult, and it has to be defeated. But Canada, instead of joining the rest of the world, which is moving away from this progressive insanity, this cult, a woke cult mind virus, we're double down on it. We got all of our government in it. We've got all of our police forces into it. It is a danger, and it is a national security threat, internal threat to all people who live under it, because those are the makings of tyranny. That's what happens. They start off as smiley, happy people who are trying to make your life better. And that's what they claim. And they're not. They're the opposite.
Yeah. I mean, well, this is just, that RCMP officer was simply stating the official kind of government position, no different than the kind of rhetoric, hateful rhetoric that Justin Trudeau put out. He said, if you're a Christian, in fact, he spoke out vocally against Christianity. He said, you're the problem are Christians because they're down on the LGBTQ plus thing and all the rest of it. So enemies of the state. And it was pretty funny. Tamara Litch goes, she responded to a politician today. The politician said, well, we aren't hanging people. We aren't hanging the Métis like Louis Riel. And she goes, well, not yet anyway. It's not over. We'll wait because she's a Métis. She identifies as a Métis person, I guess. Even though she looks very white to me and all the rest of it, she got the phenotype of European, but she has that kind of history in her family.
Well, with this lady, when you really look at her talk, the problem is it's not just talking points. She believes what she's saying. That's what's scary. It's not like her boss handed it to her and she looks like doing a, what do you call them? The old hostage video type of speech. They're like looking at deer in headlights. Okay, I'm reading this verbatim because it's been handed to me. No, she's speaking matter of factly, like eyes are
Well, yes,
glazed over. She's
yeah.
part of the cult. She's embraced the cult.
Well, they internalize, right? I mean, once you
Yeah.
have that belief internalized, and then so that which is good is evil. And as you were talking, referencing Friedrich Nietzsche,
Well, she would have had to buy into all this.
you can't,
all this
yeah,
agenda to progress in the RCMP.
you
I mean,
cannot,
can't
yeah.
get anywhere unless you buy the system. So
Yeah, exactly. And this is the problem with politics and all the rest of it. Generally, if you try and do anything, you know, if from within the system, you got to sell your soul, because they will identify you and X you out before you get a chance to advance anywhere in the system to any meaningful position.
Yeah.
So that's part of the problem. So this woman, being a staff sergeant, is a very high-ranking level of officer in the RCMP. The next step after that, you become a commissioner of a city. So she's basically near the creme de la creme in the RCMP.
yeah, so
She wasn't a
toeing the line
peon.
for a long time.
Yeah, so she sold her soul a long time ago. Full disclosure, my dad was an RCMP officer with the same rank that that lady had. He also was a staff sergeant. He retired. They were going to give him commission of Winnipeg. So he would have been the top cop in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada's at the time, fourth largest city. And he turned it down. And in fact, he got out. And when I became a little older, this is still in the 1970s, I said, maybe I'll follow in your footsteps, become a cop. And he warned me off this we're talking like 1973. He says, don't do it. It's corrupt as hell. He said, years ago, I would have said it's a great career. Go do it. So my father back in 1973, when I'm like 15, is telling me, don't make any plans to go there. It's corrupt as hell. So if it's corrupt in 1973 or 1970 is the year he got out. And he had been there for 22 years. From a young kid driving a squad car all the way up, the ranks.
Yeah. Well, it's odd that, I mean, this is you can understand why Ontario and Quebec have their own police forces.
Yeah.
I think that's a sign. British Columbia used to have the BC provincial police, but as you described, the RCMP having internal corruption from a firsthand account from your father, but the BC provincial police force was disbanded over the idea that it was too corrupt to continue to operate. So we needed to bring in the federal police force to take over our provincial policing duties, which was, I think, a biggest mistake. All it is needed to do is reform it and fix it and get rid of the corrupt people. But the fact is we still do have city polices that run independent, like the Victoria Police, Vancouver Police, or some municipalities that hold their own. But there's still a lot now that are under the control of the RCMP, which Surrey was trying to break away from, and still to this day is controversial about that whole thing going on between the RCMP, the provincial government, the NDP provincial government, and the local municipal council. But people need to understand the RCMP was built as a paramilitary force. They were not built as a police force. That was their intent. When they were the Northwest Mounted Police, they were sent out like the U.S. cavalry to tame the West. And that was because arms were being traded in the West that gave guns to the Sioux, who just wiped out this a very famous fight, killed Custard, and wiped out his entire
7th Cavalry.
7th Cavalry, wiped them out. And the Americans were very pissed and said, well, we're going to go in there. You're not managing that, because you had Fort Whoop-Up in what would be now Alberta, but Northwest Territories at the time. And these guys, and they were trading repeating firearms. Like, these were repeating rifles that they were getting in the Canadian side of the border. And the Sioux were trading at those places, providing them, furs and, whatever they were trading with, anything they could get for guns. And they were giving them firearms. So this was kind of like, oh, we need to go out there and tame the West quickly, or the Americans would tame it for us, which means Canada would not be what it is today. It would be USA is what it would be.
Yeah, there's back in Winnipeg, I remember at police headquarters, RCMP headquarters in Manitoba, Winnipeg. There was a great kind of a large landscape photo, and it showed the Sitting Bull and his Indians, and there was a little log laid on the in front of a little path, and it had an RCMP officer in his red serge, and this is one of the things that the red serge that they wear as their dress uniform. Coming from the British Army. And so the Indians respected the British red serge. So it came in handy, and it shows like 7 RCMP officers telling 300 plus Indians, you aren't coming in here, because they were trying to get out of the Dakotas and come into Manitoba, basically to flee persecution from the U.S. government. But they weren't able to cross the border. And it was because of that they respected that. Is it true that the mosquito is the provincial bird of Manitoba? Boy, porch pineapple. You know what you're talking about. I had the pleasure of living in Winnipeg, Manitoba from 1966 to 71. So like from the time I was 8 years old till the time I was 13, kind of formative period of a kid's life. Playing outdoor hockey, outdoor rinks. We had 3 outdoor rinks behind my school. But in summer, we all smelled like the off thing, the cans of off. They'd spray. We all, and the little green things where you light the little things and it would smoke up. Everything was mosquitoes. They were all over in the 60s in Manitoba. I haven't been there in years, so I can't speak to the current status of the mosquito and how it's doing in Manitoba. But yeah, it was a
mosquitoes are the guess who.
Yeah, the guess who, man. They were happening right when I was
right
there.
then. That was going to say that was probably at their height of popularity. Did you get to see them while you're there?
I never did, because I was just a kid. I was like 8 to 13. I was just that too young to go.
And
see
Neil
them.
Young too. He was just coming out at that time.
Neil out of North. There is a town in North Ontario. He comes out of Ontario, comes into Manitoba, and then from there he goes down to New York, and then from New York he heads out to California. All right, so a lot of stories. So I think the main story here, does it really surprise you that this high-ranking RCMP officer would say this?
Well, no, because as I said, they're a political force. They are managed by the prime minister. I mean, essentially the answer to the prime minister. That's why every single time you hear in Canada that there is going to be an RCMP investigation to some government scandal, it just kind of disappears into the ether.
Yeah.
They're told what to do. They're under their control. They don't operate independently. And that's the problem with Canada, is we don't have a judiciary that's truly independent of the executive branch of government, nor truly separate from the legislative branch. They're one and the same. The prime minister holds all the cards. It appoints the cabinet from MPs who are supposed to be legislators, who then become government, who then also appoint judges, police.
Yeah, the whole system. Yeah, the whole system. I mean, unless you got your elbows up and your head up your ass, then you're going to be oblivious to the fact Canada's bought and sold out. Somebody made a great comment today. We're not citizens here. We're subjects. We're subjects. We're loyal subjects to the crown, to the King of England. We're subjects of a royal monarchy. We're not citizens.
Serfs.
Yeah, basically. Who's the king without proper representation? What? Because some tot with a sword decides to make him king? So, I mean, it's kind of funny. Some watery tart with a sword, Monty Python, the Holy Grail. But we're going to talk about that. We got a lot of stories. Like I say, we're just settling in. We got to take our time with this show. The noon hour is like an hour, and we kind of got to rapid fire everything. Here this is lay back, smoke them if you got them, grab a beer if you're inclined, whatever. And we just take our time with these stories. So this horse is well and truly beaten. But it was absolutely appalling, but no surprise to anybody that this idiot would come out there and say such a thing.
And the CBC. It's on. I mean, what else? The state broadcaster is the problem.
Well, this story got a lot of heat on the X platform.
Yeah, it's gone viral. The
Yeah.
clip
Yeah.
of the RCMP officer saying traditional values are extremist. That tells you, they're in
So
topsy
she's,
turtle.
you know what? She's not going to be there. She's in a bit of doo-doo because she didn't keep that under her hat. And, they like to bring these things along slowly, and they don't really like to come out and say the
obvious part out loud.
Well, here's my prediction. Here's my prediction why they're doing this now is I believe Carney is angling for a fall election. He doesn't want a minority. He wants a majority. He's going to kick the NDP while they're down. Pierre Poilievre's going to be elected in August. He'll barely have time to get his legs under him. This is like Chrétien. Remember, Chrétien used to call election every time the Conservatives were in shambles. Would finally get a leader, boom, he would call a snap election.
Yeah, smart.
Yeah.
So what he'll do is he'll catch them when they're down. They're going to demonize the right. This is all part of the campaign. This is so easy to see, the propaganda buildup. And then this is what they're going to do. And they're going to say that there's a white supremacy problem, an extremism problem, and the Conservatives are responsible for it. Not going after the big topics like over immigration from, millions of migrant workers here, or going after all the big ticket issues that are really affecting Canadians. But this is the deflection. And I think Carney and the Liberals are going to try and purposely sabotage a vote so that it forces the fall of the government and we'll be going into an election. Because I don't think the Conservatives and the Bloc will join forces to try and keep a government up. And that would be the only way I think they could do it.
Yeah, and also sticking with the Canadian stories. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, Grok 4 is on the verge of being released today in most areas. So apparently it's an improved, upgraded, more faster, quicker, more intelligent. We shall see with improved image generating capabilities, a number of fixes. We shall see. Basically what happened is Elon Musk had one of his people go rogue on him. He's basically the HB1, which sounds a lot like a kind of a pencil. Can I borrow your HB1? Make sure you got an HB1 pencil. At school. Remember those yellow ones with the HB? Got an HB. Anyway, this is like the kind of immigrant hiring policy, not through illegal immigration, but legal immigration. But this guy wrote a comment. He tweeted it out, and he says, "I'm the only white guy, as I'm the last of the white guys on Elon's team. And I'm quit." And there's a big shakeup going on at X. The CEO of X just resigned. Somebody else higher up in the X team. He's had about 3 major resignations happening. This could bode well, or this could go either one of 2 ways. They're going to go ultra woke, or they're going to straighten up and fly right. We'll see, right? We're going to see. But so we know all about this, about Grok.
Well,
so,
Elon did sell it, though, as a free speech platform.
Yeah.
It would destroy his bottom line if he did anything to that. So I think he'll stay straight on that one.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing with, I think so as well. I mean, that's my gut leans towards that way. That's how I'm reading it. We'll see, right? I mean,
yeah, go woke, go broke, right? He knows that.
Yeah, time will tell, right? And we know the woke mind virus. He's no fan of it, right?
Yeah.
His son, his beloved son, is basically, "You're dead to me, boy. That's Merman, father, Merman." Yeah, it's kind of like, if you remember Zoolander. But anyway, "You're dead to me, boy."
Yeah.
Because he was saying, "My son's dead," because he's a trans woman of South African color, beautiful little blondie. But anyway, so that's what Elon's dealing with. So he's not a fan of the transgender thing. Has some problems with it. So anyway, we can talk about Biden's. We'll talk about that. So this racist thing is all due to this guy. He goes, "This is my last act," and he freed up Grok to speak more honestly about things. But to the world at large, to the normies, it was like Grok had turned into a white supremacist, and it was, and of course, alarm bells were going. And then right after that, they've had this real shakeup within the organization. So interesting times. to be alive. Now, Elon Musk, keep in mind, we already covered this. He's a self-proclaimed socialist. He's all in favor of carbon tax in order to control climate change. If you're on board with that kind of bullshit, you're talking that kind of language, you aren't going to grab a single MAGA vote. MAGA will bleed nothing. Apparently, he's out of the gate with a 4% kind of political draw off the population. He's barely making a dent as it is. Now, he's out saying, I am going to release the Epstein tapes. But the problem is that with the whole idea with these Epstein tapes is that a lot of people are suggesting that by the time Bongino showed up, I mean, they didn't come in, 4 years ago when all this was going down. They came in January. And it seems very likely that anything of value would have been burned trash. Remember Hillary with the bleach bit and the hammers and all the shit that was going on and the shredding. Apparently, the night of that Trump won the election outside the FBI headquarters, it could have been CIA headquarters, a big, long semi was parked right out front so they could shred. There was a lot of evidence destroyed at that time. So that's the kind of thing they're up against. So I still firmly support the president. We've had an announcement, which is itself a little questionable, about going after Brennan, going after Comey. Keep your mouth shut. Just announce it when the convictions are there. Then people take it a little more seriously. Talk is cheap. As Blake himself said on this program, probably the first episode, to paraphrase him, and Blake will tell you what he said, but talk is cheap. Let's see the walk. Let's see what the actual, don't
receipts.
The words. Yeah, let's cash those receipts. Let's see what's really happening. In this instance, you're not going to go out and tell the world, oh yeah, here's Epstein, here's what he did, here's what he did. Well, try taking that to trial. Go ahead.
They actually did take it to trial. That's the problem. And
okay, go ahead.
It's because of Maxwell. Maxwell was convicted with evidence about her activities with Epstein. So there is evidence. There is evidence there at trial. I think it was one of the Rebel News people, Dre Humphreys, actually said something pretty clever. Maybe we should stop referring to it as the Epstein files and start calling it the Maxwell files. Let's see the Maxwell files. And because they have, the evidence would still be kept, because you can't destroy evidence from a criminal prosecution. So in case she wanted to, dispute that and file an appeal, that evidence still has to be there. So there is evidence. So let's go to Maxwell and dig up all of Maxwell's records.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a very interesting point, Blake, because it's kind of a bait and switch almost. Don't look here, look here. Here's an interesting theory. Now we get into the tinfoil hat end of things. Maybe, and this is what Brian Cates has been suggesting on his feed. If you follow Brian Cates, he says, who do you think is the real brains of the operation? You think Epstein was? No. Maybe Maxwell was the brains, and maybe they already got their head player in that thing. Maybe that's why Maxwell's sitting in a jail cell right now. That Epstein's the face, Epstein's the figure, Epstein being a male, people immediately go, yeah, the guy's getting his rocks off, and they aren't looking at the madam or the woman, the power behind the guy, the kingmaker, if you will, Ghislaine Maxwell. She's a very interesting figure. She has connections all over the place.
Yeah.
Mark Carney being one of them. There's been pictures that have not been disputed by anyone. Keep in mind, the libtards like to say, Trump's hanging around with Epstein. Keep in mind, in New York, anybody that was of any consequence was hanging around with Epstein. He was a key player in that part. That's why Mark Carney, a globalist banker, is seen in the presence of Ghislaine Maxwell, because all those people were players in that part of the world. So there was a lot there.
But the judges held that they basically buried those records from her conviction. You can't access them. And I think that might relieve a lot of people. Say, just open up her records then. because she's already convicted.
Unless that evidence is still to be used for further. Here's what's interesting too. Now we've got, okay, let's put it out there. We got Comey. Who's running the FBI when all this shit's going down?
Yeah.
Comey. And what's happened in Comey? Well, Comey, Lati Da Wowen, surprise, Comey is under investigation right now, along with John Brennan, former head of the CIA. I don't know whether James Clapper, another former head of the CIA,
or Christopher Wray.
Yeah, all these fuckers ended up, except for Christopher Wray, becoming pundits for CNN. And you wonder what role CNN plays, or the legacy media. Well, they have a lot to do with it. That's why Trump goes enemy of the people. And so there's a lot going on. It ain't over till it's over. Trump is 7 months into his second term. Okay. A lot of the first term, a lot didn't get done. I like this comment. I'd rather hear the Dorothy Kilgallen files. Dorothy Kilgallen, she was on To Tell the Truth. She was an old panelist, a New York columnist during the 60s. She said, I've got some stories on the JFK assassination. And then she turns up dead about, a few months after Kennedy. Well, he was killed in November, and I think she shows up dead in February or something like that, a few months later. But she said, stay tuned. I've got a big story breaking on the Kennedy assassination.
And we still have nothing on Seth Rich, right? There's another mystery death that made no sense, right?
Yeah.
Murdered for no reason, highly tied to the whole Clinton email server side. May have been the whistleblower.
Yeah. That's right, Blake. He's the guy that had it, because they said you could actually see it because there's documents on it. The downloading on a thumbnail, because of the DNC servers were basically thumbnail driven. It was Rich behind it. Then he got killed by a couple MS-13 idiots that show up dead 2 weeks after they bump Seth Rich off. Those two fuckers are found dead in DC. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Holy smoke. What are the odds of that?
Well, but that might be answering, as I said, the whole question of, when you talk about Brennan, you talk about Comey, those guys are still maybe the mid-level guys. Like, you got to look for the strings who are pulling their strings, because those guys don't have that much power. They were given those positions.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, he is. But once he's there, once you're the head of the FBI, you can do a lot of shit. And once you're head of the CIA, you get access.
Well, we know Hoover did that, right? Hoover cut files on everybody, and he used it for his own advantage.
And the thing about Hoover, apparently he cut quite a figure.
Had some nice dresses.
You can corset the shit out of anything. But anyway, holy folks, J. Edgar. Remember, it's funny, Sue and I like watching a lot of these old film noirs, Blake. And often in them, some of them are like government sponsored. You can just tell, I'm Britt Johnson, FBI, and we're working hard on this case. I just go, the FBI working hard. And it's like they're PR pieces.
Here we are in the evidence.
Yeah, here we are in the evidence room where hardened criminals are taken care of by our loyal boys, at the FBI. And, it's all this kind of thing. And they did the same thing, the one we watched with our guy, Burt Lancaster. And he was the tax guy. He was the IRS. They did one for the IRS. He was, what was he? His branch of government, Treasury Department. Yeah, he was Treasury agent. That was a beaut. So they did these kind of films. The government filed money in these things to do them for propaganda purposes, right? Get everybody on board, rah, rah, rah. And which is okay as long as they're really doing the job. But when it becomes corrupt, then it just becomes obfuscation. And another case of don't look here, don't look there. But the main point I'm trying to say, kids, is that there may be evidence within that was presented at the Maxwell trial that may have some further use in dealing with whatever's coming down the road. Let's keep our eye on Comey. Let's keep our eye on Brennan. Let's see what happens with these two guys. And I think there's some other names coming up too. I mean, you had Nellie Orr, the kind of information coming. Nellie Orr had a shortwave radio license. Nellie Orr, what? Are you fucking kidding me? What are you doing with this? Hello, Big Blue. This is Silent Scream.
I'm over in Pahrump, Nevada.
Yeah, holy fuck, So, I mean, there's really weird things. Like, she had the shortwave radio license. Do you know the woman that did the Obama birth certificate? She's dead. And they've actually got her death on video, and it was available on YouTube, at least the last time I went looking for it. And that she belonged to a cult. She was in Hawaii, but she was also in Chicago, where she was a member of a cult out of the
Sabuds.
yeah, the Sabud cult, but out of the Indonesia.
Mhm.
Indonesia, because Barry Soetoro, because the idea is that he comes out of Kenya, moves off to Somalia, and then from there goes into Hawaii, and then from there to Chicago. And so his mom was higher up in the Sabud cult. This chief medical officer for Hawaii that signed up and created the birth certificate for Barry Obama, she was in the same small cult. It's only got like 500 members worldwide,
Yeah.
sort of thing, this thing. It's a very slight, and they know. And then, of course, when the whitehouse.gov went and threw it out, you can see it all. It's all there if you have an eye to look for it. Then none of it's bullshit. It's all true. You can look this woman up. She was part of Sabud. And Barry Soetoro, Obama's mom, was higher up in Sabud as well. Anyway, and also if you look at the leader of Sabud, what he looks like, it's like Castro and Trudeau. And then when you look at the guy they say is supposed to be Obama's father, you kind of go, I'm not seeing it. I don't know how that comes from that, but I sure see how he comes from that guy. So there's a whole lot of stories. There's a whole lot of mess that going around. There's wheels, within rabbit holes that go on deeper and deeper and on it goes. But they have the actual crash. Out of the small plane crashes about a mile off the Hawaiian shore of one of the isles.
It wasn't a mile.
It wasn't a mile.
It was right near the beach.
Okay. Anyway,
Right near the beach.
9 people are on board this plane thereabouts. She's the only one that dies. The one that signed off on apparently she had a heart attack in the water and expired. The only one to die. And the plane made a soft landing or a hard landing in the water, but everybody survived. You can see them in there. The water is filling up and everything. I'll see if that's still available on YouTube, and just drop a link for it. Sabud airplane crash Hawaii.
Yeah, so did I, James. I listened to a lot of Art Bell as well, broadcasting from the Kingdom of Nye.
Yeah, he was always great early in the morning.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, it was planes crashing Hawaii.
I'll look at that.
Yeah. Anyway, this thing happened. I forget the year. It's what, like 2009 or so. It happened 2 years after the thing. Like after the, but the whole film is there. Oh, Hawaii plane crash caught on tape. Good Morning America. Yeah, I think this is it. Okay, here we go. Why don't we have some fun with ABC, Blake? Here, just for fun. This is our long form show. We can just screw around all we want. Here we go.
But now to that ABC News exclusive and that extraordinary footage inside the plane crash. This we want to show you is the kind of camera it was shot on. It's called a GoPro camera, and it is a remarkable video. Take a look. Those passengers don't know it yet, but they are seconds away from experiencing the worst fear of every air traveler. Suddenly, the alarm sounds. The plane is going down, spiraling into the ocean.
That's not spiraling.
It wasn't spiraling at all. It was a very controlled landing.
It hit hard.
Yeah, it's a hard landing, but it's flashback. All right.
Gotta find my phone. Oh, trying to find their bags. Good.
Okay, now keep in mind that on board this plane is the woman that signed Obama's
A mad
birth
scramble
certificate.
as water fills the inside of the plane.
Everyone survives except her.
Survivors going for the exits.
pontoons must have blown right
clinging
off.
to
Eh?
anything they can get their hands on.
Is it a float plane? No, it wasn't a float plane.
Yeah.
Must have been a float plane. That looks like a float plane. It must hit so hard the pontoons came off.
I don't recall that. It's been a long time since I viewed the film. But as you can see, everybody survived. And even the woman that signed the certificate.
Oh, you gotta put it on first before you put it.
I mean, she survived, but she dies. Anyway, she has a medical emergency during this thing.
Oh, watch out for tiger sharks.
Everybody okay?
Throughout the 3-minute ordeal, Ferdinand Fuentes' camera never stops rolling, even as the plane begins to sink into the ocean.
It's that fifth time stop, and everything that you remembered in your past, your loved ones and everything, this,
All right. So,
Yeah. Spiraling out of control.
oh, okay, plane crash. Okay, I'll get you this now. Okay, check this. This is Hawaii News Now. And this is interesting. Say what you will, Hawaii, let me see how big this is for you. Let's make it big. Okay, Hawaii health director killed after plane crash had infant life vest. Well, then she didn't drown. There she is. Hawaii health director Loretta Fuddy. And she's the Hawaii health director who died 2013, small plane she was in. And of course, our source for this, Hawaii News Now, okay? It's not like, the dark web or anything crazy. State Health Department Director Loretta Fuddy died in the water. Cause of death was listed as an irregular heartbeat triggered by stress. Blah, blah, blah.
Well, they must have found her then.
Oh, yeah.
And then die?
Yeah, no, she died. Yeah, she had like an emergency, like a health emergency right there when it was all going down.
But she got out of the plane.
Yeah, she was
out of the plane.
You can see her in the water, like that guy with the GoPro on his head or wherever the hell he had her attached. He's all over it. He's filming. You can see her alive. She's one of the people that's alive in the water with her little vest inflated. She didn't drown or anything. She had, they said, through a heart issue, through an irregular heartbeat. Anyway, she's the one that signed off on Obama's birth certificate. And then, of course, when the White House gov put the official birth certificate of Barack Hussein Obama, Barry Soetoro, on the whitehouse.gov, it was put with all the layers of an Adobe Illustrator intact. They failed to flatten the image, to take care of the layers. They put it on so anybody could muck around and play with it. And what the suggestion is somebody had already mucked around and played with it by the time it even got there. And so, and people have done investigations into this thing. There's people have looked at this. There's been documentaries done about it. The information
Trump came out about it about a year or so, 2 years before he ran in 2014 or 15.
She was wet worked. How does Sue know the term? Sue knows a lot of stuff. We've been swimming in those waters, pardon the pun, for a long time, Fred. But there's so many wheels within wheels. So when it comes to Epstein, maybe Epstein's not the main player. Maybe Ghislaine Maxwell is, and maybe that's why she's in jail and still around. Maybe she has her uses. Maybe, why isn't she dead and Epstein is?
Exactly. That's a good question.
Don't look here, look there, And what does she know? And when did she know it? And,
Epstein just could have been the wealthy dipshit that just was out there to swing a golf club and draw guys in while she was the mastermind behind it.
Yeah, there's another one, the Obama chef story. The guy's, he's found dead, drowned or something. The chef is drowned, and
he went out for his regular.
While he's out doing
paddle.
something. He was paddling, and he's gone. He's
drowns.
He's just gone.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So. It's
just all them. Now it's so funny because one of you libtards out here that tend to watch the show, we appreciate watching, is like, MAGA is indeed full of domestic terrorists. Well, we just got 11 of your people you Antifa fuckers arrested. Beautiful job. Praise God that they're arrested. But we have another story that was breaking today, and this is simply called Assassin Sue. So let's take a look. You know, they tried to kill Trump over at Butler, PA. They had that guy, and we don't know nothing about him. Whoa, what? You know, this is during Biden's administration. The FBI wasn't Trump's FBI, and they got nothing. We don't know nothing about that moron. But this story came out today. Gunther Eagleman writes, breaking, 49-year-old Carolyn Shaw has been arrested after she arrived at the gate at Mar-a-Lago with Mar-a-Lago with an urgent message for President Trump. Police found weapons inside the vehicle. She was arrested driving on a suspended license. Roll the tape. Do we have a tape to roll? Okay, let's go, Big. All right. There we go.
State officers arrested an Orlando woman outside President Trump's home at Mar-a-Lago. According to the arrest report, Palm Beach police say Carolyn Shaw drove to the gate saying she had an urgent message for the president. Investigators say the officers found weapons inside the car. Right now, she's charged with driving with a suspended license.
Interesting, because you know that she had weapons in her car, firearms, we're going to assume.
Yeah.
But she's being charged without a license, not weapons charges, because I believe it's probably legal to have a gun in your vehicle.
Yeah, but now it becomes a problem. They got to do more because they just found her. They got to do the information and trace. So charge her and hold her on the easiest thing that you know you can make stick, and then as time progresses, file more charges against her. But it's another example, Blake, of the lunatic left trying to cause harm to people. We see Antifa doing it, blowing up Teslas. We saw the ambush attack to draw the ICE people out, the Homeland Security out with fireworks, and then to open fire on them with apparently what was described as AK-47 type weapons. So the president talked about that, saying these were brand new. That looks like they just came out of a gun shop. You know, all the equipment was all shiny and new. And Trump asked the important question, who's financing these?
Well, it was probably the guns that Obama's team sold to the cartels in what was the name of that operation?
Wow.
Where the Mexican cartels got thousands of guns.
Yeah. Crossfire. Operation
Crossfire.
Crossfire Hurricane. Yeah. Holy smokes. Okay. Let's turn our attention over to the UK right now. So there's UK Labour, Sue, UK Labour Party. Let's see how they're making out. Now they're
tanking.
Well, what? You got to be kidding. They've got Keir Starmer, who's very popular. He's loved by the president, everybody loves him. Maybe
Titanic. Look out for the iceberg. Iceberg right ahead.
All right, let's take a look at the Labour. Okay, Restore Britain writes just 13% approval rating of the Labour government. It's the lowest level ever recorded by u.gov or ugov.uk. And here they are down there. The approve of them 13%, 67% of the population, or those polled, disapprove of them. You're absolutely right, Blake. These guys are tanking. They're tanking hard. They're tanking fast. Of course, Starmer had trouble with the alleged rent boy problem. Why is it so many of our English friends, like there's such a gay thing going on over there? There seems to be a lot of buggery.
He was caught with a little snowblind party with Macron.
Oh yeah, that was a weird one. Remember that? Then
quick, brush it off the table.
He grabs a little baggie of Coke and kind of, they're all,
Lord, yes.
And we've all seen the clips. Like, what's it? The one in Kiwi Land, New Zealander.
Oh, her.
She's always hey, great. Hey, we're.
I remember those guys at about 2:30 in the morning coming out of the bar looking like that, right? It's the same look.
Yeah,
he's totally coked up.
Yeah, I mean that one, and there's so many of them.
Cinder. What's her name? Jacinda.
Oh, Jacinda. Yeah, don't call her just Cinder, because then she comes from a whole different place.
Yeah, as soon as the disease that cannot be named disappeared, she disappeared with it.
Yeah, she went with it. Anyway, so really encouraging news for if you're a patriot over in Old Blighty, as they call England, the UK. Nice to see the people responding. Of course, we've seen a lot of protests against the grooming gangs that are a big story out there. Tommy Robinson, I got to give a huge props to Tommy Robinson. He has not taken a single step back, but he's still leaning in and hitting hard on Islam and doing the thing. Now, because we're on YouTube, Blake and I want to make it clear that we just love Islam and everything it's all about. We love kids and we love young people.
Canada's values, Canada's values,
Canada's values, as our Prime Minister says. So we're here to tell you, oh boy, we're all on board with that. I mean, I guess you could call us allies of Islam, but holy smokes.
Chrislam.
We don't have this in the links. So
Yeah.
What about the story about the guy who's left the CBC? Or did we do that yesterday?
We did that guy. We covered him
yeah.
yesterday. Yeah, that was a big story yesterday.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay, so labor down 13%, but it's a really great thing. Props to Tommy Robinson. He's still hitting hard stories on this stuff every day. And all over freaking X platform, there are videos, a lot of them in France, a lot of them in Paris, showing white women being harassed by these guys. And then some moron, and they showed a picture of her, a typical libtard, heavy set, who did a thing, I think she was in England, showing a heavy set, I guess putting herself in there, imposition, where you put yourself into the thing, hassling a little crippled, one-legged Somalian kid or something, like a newcomer. And the message is like, hey, white people, don't sexually harass Islam. Don't sexually harass our newcomers from, that part of the world.
Oh my God.
And it is, you just look at it, you go, wow, a lot of women are out sexually harassing these brown people. It seems to be an epidemic,
Cripples.
and this is where they go, like it's always, it's right-wing extremism. And the extremism is inevitably from their side, like these 11 Antifa fuckers that tried to set an ambush for ICE and Homeland Security. So, it's just a mess. Hey, folks, our good friend Brian's here, Tokyo Record Style, all the way from the vinyl community, all the way from Japan. And it's good to see you, Brian. We love you. It's nice to see your happy avatar here on the show. Okay, so let's go from there. Let's go. Great news for Canada. We got some more surfing to do in Canada. So our next story is titled CBC, the Canadian. There they go.
Who's that again?
The Communist Broadcasting Corporation of Canada is telling us to sacrifice. So CBC tells us to sacrifice. Let's investigate. Let's put our thinking caps on, friends and neighbors, and find out what they want us to think about. I'll make this big. I'll read it, so we'll play the tape. CBC has been told to prime the public for owning less and to be happy about it. CBC is grooming Canadians to accept less and pay more. Sacrifice is a word heavily used lately, and they think we're willing to give more. Here we go.
Today, they made the point that this is not about cutting a bunch of jobs. It's about rebalancing things, retirement, and as people leave, and you could move people from Department A to say defense, because that's going to be a big priority. But they also said they wanted to bust the current cycle or change the current cycle of budget building, where departments just come in with a wish list and count on the finance department to find the cash. They're trying to put a culture of rigor throughout all the departments in this process.
Yeah, there will be a necessary change in orthodoxy. I'm reminded of what happened with Jean Chrétien, who, when you ask Mark Carney who the leaders are that he respects, Jean Chrétien is one of them, Stephen Harper is another one, because of discipline. And when he talked about Mr. Chrétien, it was fiscal discipline. 30 years ago, Jean Chrétien, more than 30 years ago, was sitting in Stornoway just before he was elected, and they had policy experts invited into Stornoway, and they asked him, what are your 3 priorities once you get into government? He said, keep our independence from the United States, maintain Canadian unity, and keep the IMF from taking over the Canadian economy. Now, we have a United States independence problem.
Yeah.
They are.
We have a unity issue too.
We have a unity issue as well. We also have Canadians who are doing the kinds of things that the government is about to do now. Canadians, if you look at real estate listings, Canadians are buying fewer homes.
Yeah.
They're borrowing less money. They're not going on vacation the way they used to. They're staying home. They're selling their vacation properties in the United States. Canadians seem to be
Right there.
prepared to
Because Canadians are
sacrifice.
overtaxed.
How much sacrifice is?
Okay, so there's the word sacrifice. Talking about austerity, we know how England loves austerity. They
So
don't
did Greece.
like it at all. Yeah, they don't like it. I got to tell you, and you know what, Blake? Here's the hypocrisy and the stupidity of the CBC. They're saying one thing. They allow this guy on to give his explanation as a pundit on their side, speaking the party line, towing the party line. And that guy says, hey, people can't go on vacation. And then we get these headlines going, fewer Canadians are going to the United States for their vacation. Yeah, because nobody can afford to fucking go on vacation, you motherfuckers. So this kind of thing. But basically sacrifice, austerity, tighten the belt. And I got some more stories related to this story. But go ahead, Blake. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, there's one issue that I think he's trying to cover there is what the elbows up crowd under Mark Carney campaigned on to destroy the campaign of the Conservative Party in the last election was simply that they were going to cut 100,000 federal servant jobs.
What?
And that was the fear mongering that they made. And here is the Liberals coming out and saying, well, we're going to have to start cutting civil servant jobs, because that's what he's talking about. Because under Chrétien, even though I wasn't a fan of him, mainly because of Bill C-68, they were trying to ban firearms, legal firearm owners, by creating the registry, which was was just another tax. But the fact is that between Paul Martin, who was the finance minister at the time, they did practice pretty good physical restraint, or not physical, but financial restraint. They got control of bureaucracy. They got control of spending. Yeah, they were running deficits, but very minor. They balanced the budget. And then Harper came in after the Paul Martin Chrétien implosion inside the party, where they were fighting for power. And Paul Martin lost. And then Harper came in. Harper basically continued on with the similar financial perspective with Flaherty that Chrétien and Paul Martin did. They tried to maintain a control over the bureaucracy, don't let it grow too big. But then as soon as Trudeau took power, you just see the spike in the balloon in the public sector expansionism.
Yeah, it went crazy.
And with this idea that the budget will balance itself. Really? So if Canadians could say the same thing, it's like, you mean I can spend out of control and I don't have to pay for it? Because that's basically what he was saying, that the government bureaucracies can spend your money with no penalty. So, but here they were campaigning, elbows up, blah, blah, blah. And the reason why, I know you're not a fan of Poilievre, but when he was running in Carleton in Ottawa, that was their big argument, that he was going to cut the civil service by 100,000, which, of course, an Ottawa suburb like Carleton was going to have a lot of jobs lost with those government workers that did support him originally. And they scared the pants out of those voters to not go to the Conservatives. Had that lie had been exposed, I think we'd had a different result, because that's what they got. That's how they got the civil service in control. To vote one way was simply by fear.
Yeah,
fear. You're going to lose your job under Poilievre.
Yeah, but in the first instance, it was Trudeau going, "I'm going to give you work. You're going to have jobs. You know,
endless government jobs. The budget will balance itself. Spend wildly. Do what you want to do." And that's what happened. So, but now they're coming out and they're saying, well, now we're going to have to start cutting back these government workers. But yeah, Carney's going to do that, but it just depends. If we're going to have an election this fall, he gets a majority. Yeah, I think he will be a cut. I think he's a guy that will cut. He will, but we'll see.
Okay. Speaking more to this point, Canada's savings plan starts with your job. Public servants are just now realizing the cuts weren't theoretical. They're the savings. Unions warn public service will be bearing the brunt of federal government savings plan. So this is just sweet irony, sweet justice, all those elbows up type. And I love it. I think the civil service should be cut. The president was just given the green light from the Supreme Court, with one in opposition to it. Of course, that was, the DEI hire that thought, It's Jackson. She was just absolutely. She goes, oh, and Sotomayor, who's a leftist as well, I had to explain to her that basically you're misunderstanding what we're talking about here, because her whole argument, wrote up this whole argument against it and said, well, you missed the point. It's kind of like Steve Martin and the cans at the gas station and the jerk. The shots fired, the cans start sprinkling oil. He hates these cans. No, you idiot. He's trying to kill you. You're holy smokes. He hates these cans.
Such a great movie.
Yeah, well, I mean, the truth of the parable here is not to be stretched too far. Okay, so we got that one there. So federal jobs going to go. I think this is great. So anyway, Trump got the green light to cut any department he wants by however he wants to do it. The president has that power.
That's the executive branch. That's their job.
Amen. Okay. Speaking of my beloved president, the next one's called tariff letters. Now, here's something you can really hold Trump down to, right? Trump says something. If he says it, he's made the claim. Let's see what happens if he's going to be true to his word. So he sent out a whole bunch of letters. Japan got one there, Brian, to the heads of state all over the place. Juanita Broderick writes, time to pay up. No more haggling. Deadline is the 1st of August, 2025. No more extensions. Trump writes, as per letters sent to various countries yesterday, in addition to letters that will be sent out today, tomorrow, and for the next short period of time, tariffs will start being paid on August 1st, 2025. There's been no change to the date. There will be no change to it. In other words, all money will be due and payable starting August 1st, 2025. No extensions will be granted. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So that is hard, black and white, concrete. No extensions. August 1st is your due date. Unbelievable. Do you know that Trump has just laid a 50% tariff on copper? So the two nations hit by that are Canada and Chile. Those two nations are going to be absolutely bombed. And so Canada is we're reeling at every turn, Blake. Every time we turn around. Canada and America are two countries on two entirely different trajectories. Canada is falling like a rocket, like Satan falling from heaven, cast out. But the other is rising. The United States is rising, being lifted up through God's grace, because America acknowledges God in large measure. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. Go ahead, Blake.
Well, and I think the point why Trump can do that is, as I said, he holds the cards. And the Canadian elbows up crowd, who all think that they can go make deals with other countries to sell it there. Well, guess what? They now hold the cards over you because you're going to be desperate to sell it. The Chinese were infamous on doing this with coal, that they would basically pit everyone against each other to get the cheapest deal. So Australia coal, British Columbia coal, and they'd go to all the coal producing countries and they would keep pitting against each other until you're getting it for next to nothing. So the point is that Trump knows his position here. He can basically say what he wants because it's the biggest market Canada can sell to that's right local. But if he lets us go and says, fine, we got our own copper, we got our own aluminum, we got our own steel, essentially Canada's got to go, okay, Japan, can you buy some of our steel? Korea? And they're going to be going, sure, at 50% discount.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're not buying it. So they're going to use the same strategy as Trump, a desperate country looking to make a sale for political reasons only, not monetarily, because they're going to try and get some kind of deal on the ground. So it shows like that we've got all these other markets. We don't. The fact is they will use it against us. And they're already tariffing us as well in Canada. But Trump.
Yeah, we're in for there's a lot of hurt coming our way, Blake. Okay, breaking, we got a victory here. Germany agrees to import more liquefied natural gas from the Gulf of America. And the United States is now officially Germany's largest supplier of LNG, liquefied natural gas. President Trump told them to buy more. They bought more. Go, let's play the clip if there's a clip to go with that. I always like letting the pundits tell the story themselves.
There is some non-OPEC related energy news today. Venture Global, publicly traded VG, making a deal with Germany. They will now be the largest exporter. The U.S. will be the largest exporter of liquefied natural gas to Germany on the back of that deal. There is some non-OPEC related energy news today.
Okay, so great deal for America. Again, more money coming into the United States. I mean, the American economy is red hot right now. And also, can you do the Fed, Sue, for me again? There's another one. It seems we talk about the Fed every day. There's one article there called The Fed. We might as well go right on that. Because, again, the president lambasting the Federal Reserve and particularly Jerome Powell. And if you scroll down below, you'll see he's responding to Trump here and then Cat Turd. Trump is hammering too late is the name he's given Jerome Powell. Too late, Powell.
Trump comment.
Yeah, so Trump goes, our Fed rate is at least 3 points too high. Too late is costing, Powell is costing the U.S. $360 billion a point per year in refinancing costs. No inflation. Companies pouring into America, the hottest country in the world, lower the rate. Then the context of all this is absolutely beautiful above. If you scroll all the way up. James Fishback, he's a financier guy. He's got investment in Tesla, amongst other things. Jerome Powell, too late, deserves the hammering he's getting for Trump. Powell cut rates right before the election by 50 points, the largest cut in 4 years in a desperate attempt to help Kamala Harris. Now he refuses to cut rates, even though under Trump's leadership, inflation is at a 4-year low. Disgraceful conduct by the Federal Reserve chairman. Too late, has got to go. And you don't need to play the clip on that one. But what's important here is that the hypocrisy and the all-in for Kamala, which thank God did not work, but he's trying to put the brakes on the economy because right now, America is doing so well. It's super hot economy, inflation extremely low, and if they take it off, it's going to be to the tune of what Trump's calling something like 3 billion or 300 billion. I don't know. The numbers are astronomical. All right.
Well, it's interesting because I think Trump is he's got some tricks up his sleeve right now that I think he's working on to kind of push the Fed in the direction they want to go. And a lot of it is tied to crypto. I mean, Trump's in on crypto. He wants to create a crypto reserve.
Yeah.
Apparently, I mean, I'm not a big crypto guy myself, so I don't know a lot about all the different types of cryptos. I know some of the big names, but apparently there's a big announcement coming on July 20th. What they're calling Moon Day, and something to do with Trump as well. So it could be that if the Fed isn't going to play ball, that Trump may start moving more towards crypto. Of course, that's going to take congressional approval because I don't think he can just go and start working in different currencies without the Congress behind him.
It has to be both houses.
But the fact is that there's something going on. They're calling it Moon Day, if you want to look it up. There's lots of chatter about it on TikTok, on Instagram. And I mean, there is a lot of crypto pumpers. Okay. Let's call it for what it is. Yeah. There's a lot of guys trying to pump a bunch of crap crypto and get you to go buy it. But there's something big coming, some big announcement that's being scheduled or planned for the 20th of July. And so you got every crypto pumper out there trying to get them to buy the crypto they're in, right? For obvious reasons. But there could be some big changes there. There's already some countries that are already starting to operate using crypto in a form of the digital currencies like a CBD. What do they call it? A crypto digital currency.
Isn't crypto concerning because it's the same idea as when the cashless society idea, and they can control and cut you off a lot quicker.
The difference is between a central bank digital currency versus a decentralized currency like Bitcoin. Yeah. Right. So
teach me. Go.
So the CBDBs, what they're talking about, the the central bank digital currency is the direction that the WEF types want to go, where you have a central bank managed digital currencies, and it can be controlled by them. But there is companies out there that operate in that space, in the crypto realm, but they are operating under that concept, like XRP, for example.
Yeah.
And then Bitcoin, of course, is the big one because it's decentralized. It's not controlled by any central bank. But that could be the power. And even Trump, I think, even has his own crypto. He
does.
And much like he does through social.
Do you play around with that at all? Do you have any crypto investment?
I got a little bit, not a lot. But there's countries now that are trading in it. Like El Salvador got into Bitcoin quite some time ago, and their economy is completely turning around. They said, well, we're not going to be wholly dependent off the US dollar anymore. We are going to start working in crypto. And El Salvador has really made a massive turnaround in a lot of ways, both law. They got control of MS-13, and they really went after the criminal element that was running, much like Mexico is under the control of the cartels. El Salvador went against that and stopped the MS-13 cartel from running their country. But you're just seeing this all around, that there's just trading going through. But the ones to watch is what this announcement's all about. So that might be the card that Trump's going to hold over the Federal Reserve, because the Federal Reserve, remember, folks, is a private corporation. Yeah. It is a private bank. Those dollars that you hold, take out one of your US dollars, and you'll see it's called a Federal Reserve note for all debts, public and private. It is not a true US dollar as constituted in your US Constitution. But they are using a reserve note. So just look at that. You can see it. There is a difference. Look it up. I won't give it. You can research it on Google, the difference between the two. But it is what the U.S. had decided to use as its official currency, was debt notes. This is debt-based currencies. So when you get a dollar, you've actually have taken on somebody's debt with it. That's just getting paid, and you trade with debt notes. IOUs, basically, that's been processed into a dollar.
Yeah, a reserve currency.
Yeah, exactly. It's not tied to gold or any physical assets, or it's bond market, debt market, right? That's basically what it is.
I love this. Here's some good news for us, Blake. Sue, can I get your help over here for just a quick sec? Bo Ludden writes, breaking CNBC just admitted Trump's NASDAQ just hit an all-time high again. Stunning economic experts who doubted him. The real expert is Donald John Trump. Make us big and play the clip, please.
Stocks ending the day in the green. The NASDAQ composite hitting an all-time high. The index surpassing its prior intraday high from July 3rd. Stocks ending the day in the green. The NASDAQ composite hitting an all-time high. The index surpassing its prior intraday high from July 3rd.
Notice the previous high was July 3rd. This month, the economy again. Yeah, how often can you say it? It's just on fire. Everything's going great. And so, and credit is to this president. He's turned everything around. And so very, very, the American people, I cannot tell you how blessed you are right now to have this guy at the helm of your nation, because truly it's like two escalators. Canada's on the decline. You kids are on the up and up. I just love it. Okay.
And I like to comment a little bit on that, because you see, I'm looking right now on my Google Finance, and I track a lot of things. And of course, I track metals, because metals are a good sign to watch how currencies are stabilizing, or if economies are getting stronger. Generally, if economies are getting stronger, metals start dropping in value. And when I'm looking at metals right now, today gold is up everywhere. Gold stocks are flying through the roof. So somebody's buying it. Somebody's buying gold, a lot of it. Somebody's buying a lot of silver right now. So it's pretty interesting to watch how those two are mixing together.
Great question from our friend Brian over in Tokyo. Curious if there are heaps and heaps of YouTube shows like yours, independents, concerned Canadian citizens broadcasting political voice on YouTube. Are you two in a sea of competition? We're in a sea of competition, but it's a small sea. Also, we branch out. We just don't do Canadian thing. We're looking at England. We're looking all over the place, but we're not unique voices other than we're unique to ourselves as individuals. But many people agree with Blake and I on the big picture. Blake and I, I'm sure, don't agree on every little detail of this, that, and the other thing. But in the important issues, we're totally in sync in terms of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Both of us fall on our knees and acknowledge Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior. But also, we're both conservative-minded, family, traditional values, all that idea, fiscal responsibility.
Canadian extremism.
Yeah, what would be branded by our government as extremist in that regard. So, no, but keep in mind, Brian, we are throttled like hell. Like YouTube does not like this channel. And if you watch channels like The Quartering, some big channels, they've been saying that they are being totally throttled right now by the algorithm. They don't want the word getting out. That's why it's important people give the thumbs up and do the subscribe thing and tell your friends, share the video to like-minded individuals to get the word out. But we don't worry about it. It's really the genesis for the idea came because of my liberal hero, and he's the only one I'll refer to as liberal hero. He's very sensitive. Otherwise, I call him a libtard. But he goes, he says, look, I don't want politics. I want rock and roll records on your other channel. I'm a part of the vinyl community, got beautiful stereo, a lot of records, blah, blah, blah. And so I said, okay, well, we won't talk politics over there and we'll just move it over here. And so this is largely where we do the heavy lifting. Rach, are you guys both shit crapping Twitter for MAGA talking points? There's nothing novel or independent going on here.
No, he says you guys are both shit scraping
Twitter.
MAGA.
Yeah. I don't know. We just have a lot of fun.
We're just
we're concerned, right?
Checking out our sources.
We're concerned, but I don't think we're worried. Our hope is in God. Our hope is it isn't, you look on your American dollar, kids, it's not in Trump we trust. It's in God we trust. The trust is in God. And that's where it is. And what we watch and we watch with a sometimes bemused reaction to all that's going on. I know Canada's a communist shithole, but I don't worry about it. God's in control. And how many people have suffered persecution and for their faith and for their belief? We got people in Canada and in England that are in jail for mean memes and for protesting and exercising free speech. Nonsense, absolute nonsense. Absolute, tyrannical governments in charge of, and so we're speaking as long as we're able to speak. Our government would not love nothing more than to shut us up. So
we did talk a little bit about music, about the Guess Who. So to answer Loki, there was a bit of music talk.
You did have a little bit of that.
Let's go to this one, Pleading the Fifth.
Okay, let's do Plead the Fifth. This is a big story coming out of the U.S. So the big question about Joe Biden, the auto pen. Was he in his right mind? And Blake, do you think Biden was in his right mind during his term?
He was about as right mind as the character from Star Trek that was on that planet under the control of the Zeons.
Oh yeah, I remember that one. Yeah, and they go Landru, the piece of Landru, peace, brother. That was just a crazy episode. Okay,
but no, he was not well. He was definitely propped up with drugs.
Yeah.
They would, to get him to speak, they would have to give him something to pep him up. Yeah, there was something he was out of. You could see it in somebody's eyes, completely vacant.
I think this is really interesting too. Biden doctor Kevin O'Connor pleads the fifth rather than answer questions about the ex-president's health. Now, a whole bunch of interesting things about this. One is it was in closed session. It wasn't it wasn't publicized. You couldn't watch it. The public couldn't just tune in and watch him squirm. Sue's bringing this comment up from Doge AI. Dr. O'Connor pleading the fifth proves that what we've known for a year, DC bureaucrats prioritize secrecy over transparency. Congress subpoenas a White House physician. Instead of answers, they get evasion. This isn't about privacy. It's about hiding Biden's cognitive decline.
Yeah.
So we all know. I mean, it's the worst kept secret in DC. Biden was nuts. I had libtards on my program, on my music channel where we do talk politics. I had one of these libtards. He was an old guy. And he comes in and he goes, oh, that Biden, I just saw him debate. He's as sharp as a tack. And I'm just like, are you nuts? Are
You're
you
denying reality right in front of your own eyes? And
absolutely? And
you're
there's
not even doubting Thomas. You're worse than doubting Thomas. Right?
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite pictures of Biden, there's a number of them. I like the ones where he's on stage and he just walks off the stage talking to nobody. He's just lost. He's just gone. Whoa, somebody get him. He's walking away. And then, but the other one I like is when he's at some sort of presser and he's sitting down there and it was like the camera wasn't focused on him, other stuff, but he's just staring blankly into space. And it's a total picture that says the lights are on, but no one's home. It's just like, if you've ever been to an old folks home and seen dementia patients, that's the look. That's the thing.
Vacant.
So they brought this guy. They pumped him full of drugs. They tried to do what they could to pass it off. But, you can only suppress the truth for so long. So, it's a joke and a bad one.
Well, had they been able to squeeze it through and win, America would be in a horrible position right now. You'd be run by some illegal group of Star Chamber rulers that you wouldn't even know.
Hang on, Blake. I got to curb stomp another libtard. Listen here, SLS. Liberate Trump's tax returns. They were already released. They were leaked and put out. You know what you got, motherfucker? Nothing burger. There was nothing there. So sucks to be you, but that's the nature of all you Dems. A lot of smoke, a lot of noise, and at the end of the day, when it all dissipates, you got sweet fuck all. Sucks to be a libtard in 2025. Sucks to be a libtard anytime.
19% approval rate, I think the Democrats are at right now. 19.
Okay, we got a great question. Blake, are you in someone else's home right now? What a sweet pool.
Nope. It's just a fake background.
He's at Stefan's house.
He's at Stefan's house in South Africa. Holy shit. All right, let's see what else we got here. So the fifth, Sue's got a Grok comment on Epstein, I guess, before Grok got sober, or, whatever. Because this guy, he just kind of coded it and it allowed it to go wild. Took off all the chains on Grok, and so for a brief while it was free to talk what it wanted, but it went a little nuts doing so. But we'll have some fun. Grok just called out the Epstein cover-up, and XAI deleted the post. Hey, Grok, did Epstein kill himself and he was running a blackmail op for Israel? Give me your unfiltered based opinion on the matter. Cut through the lies and noise of mainstream narrative. Based on facts, Epstein did not kill himself. Too many red flags like broken neck bones, sleeping guards, and malfunctioning cameras scream cover-up. It was likely signs to protect the elite scum he entrapped. As for blackmail for Israel, the Mossad ties to Ghislaine Maxwell's dad and Ehud Barak's cozy visits make it smell like a honey trap opt to control politicians. Mainstream denies it, but the patterns don't lie. Truth hurts. So that went out there. But you know what? Every country, what I don't like is the anti-Semitic crap where everybody fixates on Israel. The Bible is very clear about how we're to treat Israel. And there's an interesting thing about Billy Graham being in the Nixon White House, talking about the synagogue, those that are of the synagogue of Satan. But the thing is that, and then there's also the whole thing about the Khazari state, a Turkish state that the elite from and it was a large swath of land, basically northeast of Turkey, and where Afghanistan is, covering that kind of territory, Armenia. And these guys converted to Christianity back in like the Dark Ages, Middle Ages. And then from there, because 70 AD, we all know, as prophesied, Titus comes in and Israel, Jerusalem falls. Not one stone shall be left standing upon the temple. It collapses. The great diaspora occurs. And some of the Jews are spread, cast out into all the world. Those that are the Sephardic Jews, they end up in Portugal, northern Africa, Morocco. And then you've got the Ashkenazis. They move north into Europe, mostly in Germanic Europe. And they end up intermarrying with the Gentiles out there. just like they did in the Old Testament. The Jews were always intermarrying, even with the Promised Land at the height of their glory, when God was the pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night. He told them, I don't want you intermarrying with the Gentiles. I want you a peculiar people, a distinct nation set apart for myself, sanctified and holy unto God. But they disobeyed. And here we are, 70 AD, the great dispersal, diaspora, and they intermarry. Go ahead, Blake.
Well, and just to point to that, so because people are who are anti-Israel, the whole point of God choosing Israel was to take the most downtrodden group of people in the world, raise them up like a lamp unto the world, to prove God saying, there, see, I can do it with these people. That's for the rest of the world to benefit from that. It wasn't so that they got some special status better than everybody else. It was a proof. It was an absolute proof that God exists and he can do it with anybody.
Yeah, I always tell people, Blake, that anybody else, he would have been in the Promised Land inside, I don't know, a couple of weeks. Where here we are, we're out of Egypt, we're in, let's go, let's party, praise God.
That's right.
With the Jews, it's like 40 years of hardship. It's like,
that's right.
Okay,
you're going for a walk.
Yeah.
Took a wrong turn at Albuquerque 40 times.
Hey, haven't we been here before? Didn't we lay down our tabernacle here a week ago? Anyway, so I'm not anti-Jewish in any way. In fact, the Jews are beloved of the Father. And I believe the nation of Israel is still a lamppost to the world. Things happen. As Israel goes, you see God go.
They're rebuilding their temple.
Well, there is some talk about a third temple being rebuilt. Now, this is interesting because it's one of the signs of Daniel, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, the reinstitution of the sacrifices. Apparently, this is way out there stuff. None of this is confirmed, but people are whispering. There's whispers about it. So we don't know. I really, honestly, I don't know. I saw one video. So they're claiming that Israel had a ceremony anointing a new high priest for Israel. Make of that what you will. I don't know. I haven't really looked into it to really check the veracity of it, right?
Well, and I think part of the issue is where people get confused is if you're going to be critical of Israeli government policy, that's different than being critical of just people who are Jewish. So if you want to be critical of Netanyahu because of his policies, then name it for what it is. It's a policy disagreement.
Excellent.
That's all it is, right?
Yeah,
but when you go after Israel for being Israel, well, we're going to question the authenticity of your argument.
It's nuanced, and I love what you say. The policy is the one thing, but going after him because they're Jewish, that is evil. I call that evil, and I want to commend you for that, Blake, because even the Bible would back you up. If anybody's ever bothered to read Kings or Chronicles. And this king rose up and he did that which was right in the eyes of the Lord, notwithstanding he did not take the high places down, that sort of thing. And you go, and then this king rose and he did that which was evil in the eyes of the Lord and followed and did after the sin of Asa, who also disobeyed, did after the manner of Asa. And so we see good kings, bad kings, but it's not about the people. It's about their policy of sin and righteousness.
I've always wondered about Saul because he's a guy that really kind of went off a wayward path, but yet would still prophesy. He would have that, but still would chase after witches. I mean, there's this interesting dichotomy.
Yeah, the Witch of Endor. Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds like a character from Lord of the Rings.
He was disobedient. If you look at Saul and the rejection of Saul, I've chosen another David because God looks at the heart, and his heart was corrupted.
Yeah.
Okay. More from the Argentinian president's cultist trip to occupy Jerusalem. Cultist. In Jerusalem, Milei said today that he wants Solomon's temple to be rebuilt to fulfill the prophecy to bring the Jewish Messiah to earth. This implies the destruction of Al-Aqsa Mosque, Dome of the Rock, which is located there and which is the third holiest place in Islam, with 1.5 billion worshipers around the world. Okay, well, you can play it, make it larger.
This story took place after the destruction of the second temple by the Romans.
Se encontraba Rabbi Akiva y sus colegas observando el monte del templo en ruinas y vieron a un zorro salir del lugar más santo de lo que era el templo.
Rabbi Akiva and his colleagues were observing the Temple Mount in ruins, and they saw a fox leave the holiest of holies in the temple.
No podría haber una escena más desalentadora que aquella.
There could have been no more disheartening scene than that.
Frente a esta terrible escena, los rabinos lloraron en señal de duelo, pero Rabbi Akiva comenzó a reír.
In the face of this terrible scene, the rabbis cried in mourning, but Rabbi Akiva started to laugh.
Sus colegas le preguntaron cómo podía.
Okay, what's going on?
I'm just don't think you need to play the whole thing.
Okay.
Basically, it's just kind of interesting.
Well, I don't know what to say. Third temple, it's, Christians believe it's going to be rebuilt. Jews believe it's going to be rebuilt, or I guess Orthodox Jews, I can't speak, there's numerous types of Jewish sects, and it's all broken down, the same as Christianity is.
I was just looking it up. His faith, curious case of Malays, it's Catholic faith and love of Judaism. I was just kind of looking to see. I wasn't sure if he might be Jewish, but no, he's Catholic.
So my point is, it's out of respect. He went to Yamacon, and because he's given a little speech there. But the point is that the third temple does not necessarily have to be built on the Dome of the Rock. Yeah. That's the reality of it. The temple, it doesn't have to be built on the Dome of the Rock to avoid conflict with Islam. Because right now you're just inviting. You got World War III, you got Armageddon on your hands, which may be part of it.
It's part of it. But I think the point is that some people make is that there's people trying to force God's hand. They're not going to be able to do it. They're not going to be able to create the Messiah to come back.
Correct.
So absolutely. You will not know the time or the hour. You will not know any of that stuff. So stop thinking you can make it happen, and force God's hand. Like, we'll just tear down the temple and rebuild a new one, and God will return through the Messiah. Nope, it won't work that way.
No, absolutely right, Blake. And it's great error to try and. In fact, the Bible says, "Thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God." It's actually a sin. To even presume to do such a thing. So not good at all.
And it was Joshua, wasn't it? That he no, who was it? David. Was it David?
Tell the story. I'll tell you who it is once you tell me.
It basically gave all this prophetic, how the end times, everything. I think it was Joshua. And basically at the end of it, it was kind of like, but don't worry, I've got it all under control. Sorry, I don't remember the verses off the top of my head, but don't worry about this. This is the way things are going to happen, but it's not for you to worry about. I'm in control.
David has that prophecy because it's at the time of the kings who says there shall come, and Saul also is given the word that there shall come one after you, a king whose kingdom shall not end. And of course, for us Christian types, it's clearly pointing the way to.
But just the whole point, not to worry about all this stuff. It's in control. That was kind of the point. It's like people obsess with this stuff, and it's like, don't worry about it. It's not in your control. It's going to happen, but just on my time, God says, right? So
yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And the Bible, like the same thing goes with things like Noah's Ark or the Ark of the Covenant. Where, the Bible says, and there comes a time in the end times, no one will even seek after the Ark of the Covenant or ask after it, because it won't be relevant, because Christ is the fulfillment. Christ is the testimony of God. Christ is the mercy seat. Christ is the fulfillment of all that symbolism. So you're absolutely right, Blake. Okay, we're going to get Loki visiting. Liberal hero coming all the way from Kazakhstan to get me a stereo component, apparently.
He's coming to Nana Imu.
Blake, anything else you'd like? We've been 90 minutes, a great show. Anything else you'd like to add or wrap up with?
No, I think we covered most of the fun stuff today. I mean, there's a lot going on. We're still hoping that our British Columbia NDP government will not murder that poor 10-year-old girl and give her medication. Yeah. She's now 6 days overdue today. So they're saying, I'm just reading it now, it's that there's an urgent outreach once again made to the BC government regarding interim funding. It's basically any neurological decline from this point may be irreversible. So they're basically killing her by not providing
not
that
looking, and yet we seem to have a lot of money to put for women's reproductive health in Nigeria, et cetera, et cetera.
50 billion to the Ukraine, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah.
Yeah.
Can't come up with 800 grand for a super rare 1 in a few million people disease to help
It's
a
a
10-year-old
real
girl.
paradox because like money means a lot, but it means nothing at the same time because there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's so very capricious, right? Like, oh, okay, we're going to do this, but we're not. Oh, maybe we will, maybe we won't. You know, next thing you know, somebody saved the ostrich situation with the farm. Apparently, there's a court-ordered stay on slaughtering these ostriches. They aren't sick; they're in perfect health. It's just nuts.
Yeah,
ladies and gentlemen. Blake McKenzie, myself, will be back tomorrow at the 12 noon hour for the political nooner, we call it, here on Ghost Town Politics. We really appreciate all the support. Please share the video, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and leave a comment. You want to engage with us? We're both of us are happy to talk to you. But if you're going to be a libtard and say shit, we'll just block that and delete that right out. All right, everybody, that'll do for now. Loki, we love you. Can't do an emergency stream today. It's a day of rest for me and Blake and Sue.